Hello YouTube! Today we're going to be looking at the Airfix Hawker Hunter F6 in 1/48 scale. The kit seat was replaced with a quick boost item as it had a lot more detail. The seat was sprayed in tamiya flat black and highlighted with tamiya rubber black. The rivets on the ejector seat were very visible in the real aircraft, so these were dry brushed with a citadel silver colour. The seat was painted with various Vallejo colours. This was followed with a MIG wash. Highlights were added with titanium white oil paint and blended in with a soft brush. The cockpit was primed with Mission Models grey primer, and then followed up with the same colours that I used on the ejector seat, matte black and rubber black. The side consoles were carefully picked out with Vallejo black. The knobs and switches were undercoated with a layer of white to bring out the colour. The edges of the cockpit were dry brushed with a grey colour to simulate wear. When that was dry, I dry brushed a layer of steel on the worn edges to simulate more wear. To help the instrument panel decal conform to the details, I used Mr. Mark setter and softer. This was then pressed down with a cotton bud to make sure there were no air bubbles left underneath. The wheel bay for the nose gear was sprayed with alclad duraluminium. Whilst that was drying, the instrument panel was finished off with some drops of gloss in the dials. And here we have the finished cockpit. The intake fan was sprayed with Mr. Colour GX2 and then alclad pale burnt metal. To stop the aircraft becoming a tail sitter, I rolled up lead from stained glass window kit and glued it into the fuselage securely with superglue. Holes were drilled with a drill bit and pin vise for the underwing fuel tanks. The wing join needed a little bit of putty to blend it into the fuselage. This was spread into the gaps, and then the excess was removed with a cotton bud. The canopy was masked with tamiya masking tape embossed with a toothpick, and then cut with a sharp 10A scalpel blade. The canopy was then glued carefully with Revel Contactor Clear. The undercarriage struts were quite tricky to place, so I advise you take care during this stage. As you can see, I broke a piece. The fillet for the air brake was a bad fit and needed lots of filler to fix. The fit of this aerial was pretty poor. I had to hollow out the opening more and fill it quite a lot afterwards as well. The canopy was painted in the interior colour, black, before I primed the model with Mission Models grey primer. For the base layer for the alclad, I used Mr Colour GX2, a very high gloss black. I painted the upper surfaces black to prepare the model for black basing later on. I used alclad aluminium for the underside colour. This was then shaded with alclad magnesium and highlighted with alclad white aluminium. For the upper surfaces, I used Hataka orange line lacquers. I like black basing because it can help you achieve a more uniform look with your model. With pre-shading, it's easy to get the crisscross panel line look, but with selecting different panels and different variations and intensities of paint, you can achieve a very natural look. The Cold War RAF camouflage was hard-edged. For the first attempt at the camouflage, I thought I could get away with a very tight airbrush line. After looking at various references, I realised my camouflage lines weren't tight enough. With tamiya masking tape for curves, I remasked the camouflage and resprayed the camouflage to give it a hard edge. Much better. For the markings on this model, I used an extra decal set. I wanted to replicate an aircraft from my local airfield, RAF Chivner. AK panel liner for green and brown camouflage was dropped into the panel lines and details. When the panel liner was dry, I wiped away the excess with a cotton bud, leaving the panel liner in the details only. The finish was finalised with a mix of alclad aqua gloss and Winsor & Newton Galleria matte varnish to give a slight satiny sheen to the aircraft. The canopy masking was carefully peeled away with a sharp knife and some fine tweezers. The underwing fuel tanks were then added and the build was complete. I hope you enjoyed my first full build video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. Thanks for watching.